Have you ever wanted to tell someone about your family in Spanish? Not just who they are, but how you get along with them, what they do, and where they live? By the end of this episode, you'll be able to describe your entire family like a pro in Espanol. Welcome to Spanglish Friends, the podcast for true beginner Spanish learners.
Hola amigos, I'm Val, your experienced Spanish teacher and co-host from Venezuela.
And I'm Em, your Australian co-host who's been learning Spanish for 10 years.
We'll help you get confident listening and speaking beginner Spanish with content you can actually use in real-life conversations.
Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on socials at Spanglish_friends. Let's get started.
Comencemos. Bienvenidos de nuevo, amigos.
Welcome back, friends. This week, we're diving into the next level of talking about your family. Last episode, we taught you all about family member vocabulary, introducing words like mum, dad, sister, brother, in-laws, you name it, we taught you it. So today, we're taking that next step and telling you how you describe your relationships with your family, what occupations they do, where they live, adding that next level of vocab.
That's right. You'll also learn how to describe the size of your family and give extra details that make your sentences sound natural. Whether your family is huge or tiny, this episode is going to help you to talk about them confidently in Spanish.
Yes, and como siempre, like always, we have three guiding preguntas, three guiding questions to lead today's learning.
Pregunta número 1. ¿Cómo puedo decir cómo me llevo con mi familia en español? How can I talk about how I get along with my family? Pregunta número 2. ¿Cómo puedo decir qué hace mi familia y cuántos somos en español? How can I talk about what my family does, occupations, and how many people are there? Last one. Pregunta número 3. ¿Cómo puedo decir dónde vive mi familia en español? How can I say where my family lives?
Nice, Profe Val. But before we dive right on in, let's warm up our listening skills today with our conversación pequeña, our mini conversation.
Today, Em is going to talk about her family again, and you'll hear lots of words which is mentioned in context. As always, como siempre, amigos, grab a pen and write down 3 words you recognize. This is a fun way to see your listening skills improving every week. Entonces, mi querida amiga, are you ready?
Sí, Profe Val, comencemos.
Amiga, Em, cuéntame un poco sobre tu familia.
Claro, Val. Mi familia es pequeña. Tengo un hermano que vive en Londres y trabaja como ingeniero. Mi mamá se llama Annie y vive en Nueva York. Mi papá se llama Tom y es médico. Y mi suegra vive cerca de mí.
¡Oh, qué interesante! ¿Tienes tíos o primos?
Sí, tengo 2 tíos y 3 primos. Todos viven en Estados Unidos.
Ah, ¿y cómo es tu relación con ellos?
Me llevo muy bien con mi hermano y mi mamá. Con mi papá tenemos una relación complicada, pero lo quiero mucho. Con mis primos soy muy unida a ellos. Nos vemos seguido.
Muy bien, amigos. Did you catch any new phrases for describing family members? Maybe vive, trabaja, or me llevo bien? Let's break it all down.
Yes, because you're going to be able to understand everything we said in less than 10 minutes. So vamos, starting with pregunta número 1. ¿Cómo decir cómo me llevo con mi familia en español? How do we talk about how you get along with your family in Spanish?
The most useful phrases, amigos, is me llevo bien con. Me llevo bien con. This means I get along well with. For example, me llevo muy bien con mi hermano y mi mamá. I get along well with my brother and my mom.
Yes, and this comes from that reflexive verb llevarse, which we've learnt in the past, me llevo, I get along well with. But if your relationship isn't perfect, you could say, tengo una relación complicada con. I have a complicated relationship with. So, like con mi papá, con mi mamá, tengo una relación complicada.
Exactamente. Now, to say that you're very close to someone, you could say, soy muy unida a. I'm very close to. Let me give you an example. Soy muy unida a mis primos. I'm very close to my cousins.
Yes, you could say, soy muy unida a mi mamá, a mi papá, a mi hermano, hermana. Notice how you can swap these phrases super easy depending on the person you're talking about. You can talk about it with any of your family members.
Moving on to pregunta número 2. ¿Cómo decir qué hace mi familia y cuántos somos en español? How can I talk about what my family does and how many people there are?
Yes, so let's start firstly with your family's occupations. So to do so, you can use the verbs trabajar, which means to work, or ser, which means to be. For example, mi hermano, my brother, trabaja, he works como ingeniero. He works as an engineer. Como means as a, ingeniero, as an engineer. Or you could say, mi papá es médico. My dad is a doctor, médico.
Numbers and size are also very important. You can say, mi familia es pequeña, meaning my family is small. Or, mi familia es grande, my family is big. You can be more specific with numbers, saying, for example, tengo dos tíos. Using here the verb to have, tener, tengo dos tíos, two uncles. Or, tres primos, three cousins, to be more specific.
Yes, and notice how we combine plurals with numbers. For example, tío becomes tíos, adding an S at the end to make uncles, or primo becomes primos to make cousins, or hermano becomes hermanos to say brothers. This helps you to describe multiple members of your family quickly.
And to make your sentences richer, you can include locations or extra detail, saying, for example, todos mis primos viven en Estados Unidos. You are saying, all my cousins, todos mis primos viven, they live, vivir is the verb to live, and Estados Unidos, United States. That adds context and makes your Spanish sound more natural.
Yes, and I think important to note here is when we're talking about one member of your family, you need to say mi, like mi mamá. But if you're talking about plurals, you need to say mis, like mis hermanos, my brothers and sisters, mis primos, my cousins.
That's a good call out, Em. Thank you.
Moving on to our final question of the day. Pregunta número 3. ¿Cómo decir dónde vive mi familia en español? How do I say where my family lives, building on what Val just taught us?
Here we use, amigos, the verb vivir. This means to live. For example, mi hermano vive en Londres. My brother lives, vive, él vive, he lives en Londres, in London. Another example, mi mamá vive en Nueva York. My mom, mi mamá, vive, she lives en Nueva York, New York. Or mi abuela, my grandmother, vive, she lives en Australia, in Australia. Mi abuela vive en Australia.
That's right. And you can combine occupations with relationships for full natural sounding sentences in español. For example, mi papá vive en Nueva York y es médico. The full sentence together, that descriptive sentence would be, mi papá vive, my dad lives en Nueva York, in New York, y, the joining word of the sentence, which means and, es médico. He is a doctor. Es médico.
Genial. Now that we've finished answering our 3 questions, let's revisit our mini conversation, nuestra conversación pequeña, line by line, to see all of this in action.
Let's do it, Profe Val. First, friends, I said a description of my family. I said, mi familia es pequeña. Do you remember what this means? I was telling you about my family size. I said es pequeña. It's small. Alternatively, I could have said es grande. It's big.
Then M added, tengo un hermano que vive en Londres y trabaja como ingeniero. Breaking the sentence down, she said, tengo un hermano, I have a brother, que vive, who lives, en Londres, in London, y trabaja, and he works, trabajar is the verb to work, como ingeniero, as an engineer.
That's right. And we had another similar sentence following this where I added, mi mamá se llama Annie y vive en Nueva York. The phrase se llama, you might remember from last week, means introducing someone's name. They are called. So mi mamá se llama Annie. Her name is Annie. Y, the joining word and, I added the description of vive. Do you remember what verb that comes from? Vivir, which means to live, in Nueva York. In New York, giving a location.
Exactamente. Then M also said, mi papá se llama Tom y es médico. She said, mi papá, my dad, se llama, his name is Tom y es médico. Using ser, he is, for profession, the verb to be, es médico.
And I added, y mi suegra vive cerca de mí. Suegra is a word which means mother-in-law, a new vocab word for today. Suegro means father-in-law, if you wanted to use that as well. Los suegros means parents-in-law. I said, mi suegra, my mother-in-law, vive, she lives, cerca de mí. Cerca de mí means close to me.
Extended family and said, tengo dos tíos, meaning I have two uncles, y tres primos. I have three cousins. Then she described, todos viven en Estados Unidos. All of them, todos, viven, again, she used the verb to live, vivir, viven, en Estados Unidos, in United States. Then I asked her, ¿cómo es tu relación con ellos? This is a very common question if you want to know how is your relationship with them. ¿Cómo es tu relación con ellos?
Yes, and I used some of those relationship descriptions that we learnt earlier in today's episode, including me llevo muy bien. Do you remember what this means? It means I get along well with. Me llevo muy bien. Then we add that joining word con to say with mi hermano. I said I get along very well with my brother y mi mamá. Then I said, con mi papá tenemos una relación complicada. Remember, we use this word to say if you've got a complicated relationship with someone. I said, con mi papá, with my dad, tenemos una relación complicada. We have a complicated relationship. Pero lo quiero mucho. Lo quiero means I love him mucho, very much.
Finally, M said, con mis primos, soy muy unida a ellos. Nos vemos seguido. Breaking the sentence down, M said, con mis primos, with my cousins, soy muy unida. I'm very close to. And then she wanted to add more description saying, nos vemos seguido. We see each other frequently.
Woohoo, friends. Now you can take these patterns from our conversación pequeña and swap in members of your own family, their occupations. Maybe you need to googlear some of their occupations to find out how you say them in Spanish. You can talk about locations and describe your relationship with them. And you did it. You're ready to talk about your familia like a pro in Español, but let's make sure everything's sticking in your mind. Here are the tres cosas clave, the three key things we learned today, Spanglish friends. Firstly, you learned about how to talk about your relationship with your family in Español.
Exactamente. You learned how to describe how you get along with them using the reflexive verb llevarse. Remember phrases like me llevo bien con mi hermano. I get along with my brother. Or tengo una relación complicada con mi papá. When, for example, you have a complicated relationship with someone, in this case, I'm giving the example, con mi papá, with my dad. Or if you're very close to some family member, you can say, soy muy unida a. For example, soy muy unida a mis primos. I'm very close to my cousins.
Nice. The second thing you learned today was how do you talk about what your family does, their occupations, and the size of your family.
For example, mi hermano trabaja como ingeniero. My brother works as an engineer. Or mi papá es médico. My dad is a doctor. For the size, mi familia es pequeña. My family is small. Or mi familia es grande. My family is big.
And finally, you learned how to say where your family lives in Español.
you learn that you can use the verb vivir to do this. So, for example, mi mamá vive en Nueva York. My mom lives, ella vive en Nueva York, in New York. Or, mis primos viven en Estados Unidos. My cousins live in United States. And now for your reto de la semana, the challenge of the week to put your new skills into practice. Let's go with it.
Let's do it. And this week's challenge is to write a sentence in the comments about your family in Spanish using the new words we've learned today, talking about your relationship with them, their occupations, or where they live. For example, mi mamá vive en Canadá y es profesora. My mum lives in Canada and she's a teacher. Or you could say, me llevo muy bien con mi papá. I get along very well with my father, right? Pop your sentences right now in the comments so we can check your answers and we can give you a shout out at an upcoming episode.
And now, spoiler alert for the next week. In episode 35, episodio 35, we'll talk about how you can say what you're currently doing in Spanish. Like, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm dancing. And how do you say these ing words in Spanish?
Oh, all these doing words in Spanish ending in ing. Super useful and exciting for next episode. Well, that's all for today. Remember, friends, practice makes progress, not perfection.
I love this sentence, and thank you, amigos, for listening to us, and we're going to see you in an upcoming episode. Until next time, amigos, hasta luego.
Ciao!
Thanks for listening to Spanglish Friends. We're both so proud of the time you're investing to level up your Spanish skills.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, follow us, leave a rating, or tell a friend about the show. It helps our awesome community grow.
Join fellow beginner Spanish learners by following us on Instagram and TikTok at Spanglish_friends.
Congratulations on taking another step in your Spanish learning journey.
Hasta la próxima, amigos.